That's actually all that is published. And what's interesting about a lot of this is, although a lot of what goes on is secret, actually not all of it is. And yet the media seem to sort of not latch on to the fact that there's lots of serious problems going on in the judicial processes. And the symptoms of it, such as, for instance, people being refugees from the country, the Fathers for Justice people who get very upset because they're getting a rum deal very often, and not all of them, and yes, there are some really strange people around, and you know, not everyone who complains about injustice is a victim of injustice, but you've got the symptoms of what is actually a massive injustice in secret courts going on in this country. So the third one then is mental capacity, where you have people who are deemed to be too stupid to decide where they want to live. Right? And I've cited another one. I won't go into the details here. It's in the Hansard. I've cited one of those cases where, if you take Lee Gilliland's case, where he's quite bright, he's probably in the upper quartile of the population, right? Yet he's been deemed too stupid to instruct a solicitor because he thinks the system's against him. Well, the system is against him. Not all paranoia is wrong, you know. So he's been hard done by his likely to be evicted. At the moment, they've decided to evict him and give most of his money to his solicitor. Well, that doesn't seem very good to me. I wonder who's protecting his interests. So the idea is to have an inquiry into secret prisoners. Now, Parliament has the power to demand information. At the moment, the official solicitor who deals with the mental capacity cases refuses to give any information about any cases. He says he's not accountable to Parliament. Well, there is a difference between committees and individual MPs. Committees have the power to demand information. Individual MPs don't. That is why I'm very pleased that the Freedom of Association have decided to back my campaign for an inquiry into secret prisoners, to find out how many people there are, what basis people have been jailed upon. So if you take the case that I've cited in here, there's a report, and in the middle of the report, on about that space on A4 sheet, there is a note from a social worker that says about an individual that she doesn't know what she's doing, and on the basis of that, suddenly she's imprisoned. No second opinion, no proper scrutiny. It's all in secret. You know, you could have it published but anonymous, so that you can see the sort of things that are going on. I believe the German system tends to have anonymous judgments, but what we have here is that people go off into a huddle, into a secret room, and jail people for talking about it. Luckily, we also have the Bill of Rights, and therefore this sort of thing can go on. So there are really two areas I'm pushing for action on. One is to make sure that people can talk to their Member of Parliament, or another Member of Parliament, so the communication between people and Member of Parliament. And the second one is an inquiry into secret prisoners, of which there are a lot. There are hundreds and hundreds of people. And much that I don't think that solves the problems in the system, what it does do is it starts making some progress. And the interesting thing within the structure of our constitution is that generally government ministers can't criticise judges, but Parliament can. And people often don't make the distinction between the executive and the legislature, and it's important to make that distinction.
Just wondering what the criterion is for deciding if someone is mentally deficient, and who decided on the standards? I mean, being new to this issue.
Yeah, what it is that there's a test, which was the test for capacity is whether somebody understands the underlying issue. So there was a Masterman Lister versus Bretton Company case, which was superseded to some extent by the Mental Capacity Act 2005. And that added a key change, which isn't just that does somebody actually understand what they're talking about, as in, can they describe the decision, can they see the upside and downside, do they hold in their mind the capacity, the information that's necessary to make a decision. But it added an extra bit, which is you're supposed to put all the possible effort in to assist them in making the decision before you refuse their right to make that decision. And what is used for imprisonment is the fact that somebody hasn't got the capacity to decide where they should live.
Richard Wetherill, you said that the press tend to shy away from even those parts of proceedings that they could report. Why do you think that is, and what do you think you can do about it?
I think there are certain journalists who've had some real interest in this, Camilla Cavendish, Sue Reed, there's Denise Robertson on this morning. They know there are problems, but it's the difficulty of getting into it, and also because you can't have a go in such a direct way, because what you have with politics, you can have a go at the politician, but here you're trying to get into the judicial system, and it's much harder to get into what's going on. And then these technical points, like not being allowed a second opinion, cause a massive injustice. But you can't have a debate going on on Newsnight, say, about should we have a second opinion. They won't cover it. And you've got John Sweeney's been very good on this, for instance, on Panorama. John Sweeney's been very good. But it's just trying to get into the detail is a little bit more complex. It's a bit harder to handle.
The Bill of Rights you talked about.
Yes.
In America, I mean, Devin is from Texas here. You remember, so that kids are taught about the Constitution and everything. Do you know? Are people taught this?
I don't think what's interesting about this country is that we do have a constitution, and it has its various documents, and you can work out what it is, but it's very little to find out. It's taken me some time to find out. And if you're interested in, what the constitution is, where the laws are, like, who knows that Magna Carta is in statute in force in this country, but it's Magna Carta 1297, not 1215, and there are only 3 clauses that are valid. Anyone knew that before this meeting?
I didn't. I hope
it's in the debate in there, so there's lots of interesting bits.
I hope there's a big opportunity in 4 years' time to really educate people on that.
Well, I think, yeah, I suppose.
The anniversary.
Yeah, but not the
one. We've got to wait till we'll be dead by then.
Well, yeah, but the point about Magna Carta is it's actually, when you look at what's happening in Libya, for instance, how this country back in 1215 came to a resolution of something which, to be fair, didn't apply to everybody; it only applied to freemen at the time. But how the principles were good principles to develop. And you develop the concept of equality before the law, which we've not got now.
Well, the question I want to ask you, John, is how do we defeat the people that are standing in our way?
I think, well, the Parliament has the power to do so. Parliament can take action.
Yeah.
It can take action for contempt of Parliament. The last case was actually last year, and it was when Withers threatened me that unless I said I wouldn't speak about something in Parliament, they would sue me for defamation. Right? Okay, and they didn't understand that was a contempt of Parliament, even though. And there's a report on the Parliament website, Withers LLP. There is a report which has all the correspondence in it between Withers and myself, where I say, by the way, this is a contempt of Parliament, and they say, no, we don't. We really know what we're doing. And then suddenly they found it was. And Parliament has the power to do that, and what I'm looking to do is to encourage members of Parliament to support me. You see, one of the difficulties is, if you think when you watch on telly, in front of the speaker you have these people with wigs on, yeah? They're the House officers. Now, they have been advising the Speaker that it's all too much to try and do something about these judges going and banning people, you see. So we need to encourage members of Parliament to write to the Speaker or write to me in support of having action taken against the judges who are banning people from talking to MPs. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So there needs to be a public campaign to open up the right of every UK citizen to talk to an MP. Right? That's the one thing. And the second thing, and then it also applies, Parliament can establish an inquiry into secret prisoners. That in itself, just finding out what goes on, won't directly change things, but it will indirectly change things. Because as people find out what's going on and think, how dreadful is this? So you go into the one there, you've got these boats with drinking water where there's potentially toxic material in it and nobody's been told. And not only that, they've taken the bloke and hammered him with injunctions, threatened him with this, that and the other, so they shut him up. It's not on. It's not on, and people are not happy about it. And hence, getting things into Hansard, getting things published by Parliament so that people find out what's being done in their name is important, because it does affect things.
And John, I'm really grateful to you.
I'm happy.